The drive back from the Alpha conference was always the worst. Yes, having the conference out in the middle of nowhere was a deterrent for anyone to attack, but goddess be damned, it was literally in the middle of nowhere. Since my pack was at the very northwestern corner of the States, even bleeding into Canada, it was the longest drive out of most of the Alphas heading in. We could have flown, but my beta refused to get inside a flying metal tube. His fear forced us to drive, and I wasn't about to get through those meetings without him. I'd love to just skip the whole thing, but it was mandatory or you would incur a penalty that could be serious. I was just lucky enough to be able to take both my beta and my gamma. My father currently was watching the pack for us. I also decided to bring some of the young kid and give them a chance to see what it was like out in the field. Oliver was my gamma and his son Jake was set to take over as beta instead of gamma. Kirk was my beta and his son Curtis was set to take over the gamma spot. Then I had brought 4 of the most promising recruits that were headed into the warrior training. I still requested they went to college, but they would be training full-time with our other warriors for 2 years before stepping up. This was their first test and they really hadn't done all that bad. There had been more than one scuffle that happened between alphas, but I kept myself pretty reserved from that kind of drama. It probably helped to that my dad had been the previous Alpha King's best friend. I knew the current Alpha King, Jasper, but we didn't have the same relationship that our fathers had. Still, I was closer to him than most alphas, and that would deter them for picking a fight with me. So, are we stopping in the next city? Jake and Curtis weren't 18 yet and still in high school. They didn't have access to the mind link of the pack. My phone was mounted on the dash. A call between our 3 different cars that we had caravanned to the conference in, Oliver growled. Isn't the next city the one with the single motel that looks straight out of a horror movie? I chuckled at my gamma, but it was Kirk, my beta, who replied. Scared liver. So what? I don't want to sleep with bedbugs. 'Cause you know they don't clean that shit. The whole town is disgusting. I swear. They have a strip club. One of the younger guys piped up, making Kirk and I groan. Oliver gagged. You don't want to know what kinds of diseases end up in places like that. Not out here. I mean, I don't feel like pulling an all-nighter this early either, but that city is depressing. Every time we pass it, more is crumbling. Kirk sighed. We will hit it around dinner time according to the navigation. All right. We will stop for dinner and then decide after we have some food in us. They all agreed, and it was quiet for a few minutes before the younger guys started to launch into a conversation about which she-wolves they were going to hit first when they got back. Hanging up on the call, I sighed. I needed some quiet for a moment. My wolf was grumbling in the back of my head. He didn't like being in a car for this long as well, and it set him on edge that I was the second car in our 3-car line, but the only one without extra passengers. It was always my requirement that I could drive alone. Sometimes I just needed a break. Not just from the pack but from everything. You okay? Kirk mind-linked me. Yeah, I just needed some quiet. I'll jump back in when we get closer. He hummed for a moment. All right, Alpha. His mind-link disconnected and I was left alone to my thoughts. This Alpha conference had been particularly infuriating. A lot of the older Alphas had handed the reins down to their sons who thought they would try and make a name for themselves. Unfortunately, all they did was raise their voices and make themselves hoarse. More and more ridiculous ideas hit the floor and ended up being a waste of everyone's time. Unlike usual, the Alpha King had to step in multiple times to chastise them. Even I had to step in. I was pretty middle of the road in politics and I rarely made waves because I didn't see a need to. Every Alpha had the option to run their pack how they wanted, but there were some lines that weren't crossed. Lines that were brought up multiple times. I'd never been so exhausted from a conference like I was with this one. It didn't help that I was 30 this year. 30 and the only one at the conference without a mate. That had been shocking. Sometimes there were few out of the younger alphas, but they all showed up with chosen mates this year. It made me stand out, and Jasper finally took me aside to talk to me. While we drifted apart, in private we dropped the titles. He gave me the speech that my counsel continued to give me. Except that I knew Jasper was coming from a place of genuine worry. That and I was too much of a stubborn bastard. He laid out an ultimatum for me. Either I took a chosen mate before I turned 31 or he would choose for me. That's what was putting me in a foul mood. I believed in the fated mate bond. Despite how old-fashioned it was viewed nowadays. Deep down I knew that my mate probably had already died, or they were somewhere in the world that I couldn't reach. It still seemed unfair that I wasn't given time to wait for them. My age felt moot compared to finding a soulmate that is an alpha. It was important to have a Luna. Someone by my side. Dad had helped me put it off the decision so I could look, but now it was all coming to a head. A mate made me stronger. A fated mate would make me stronger. Stronger than even my dad. If I chose a mate, they would at least put me on par with him. Right now, I was neither of those. I was tired. Getting more tired by the day. I knew being away from the pack frayed the nerves of my wolf and I. But it was more than that. A continuous headache had been hitting me behind my right eye ever since we left. While at the conference, I didn't really sleep. I already suffered from insomnia, but I couldn't even nap while we were there. It was like my brain was wired but my body was shutting down. Alpha? Kirk was tentative as he mind-linked me. I hummed. The city is just up ahead. Blinking, I realized he was right. I must have spaced out for longer than I thought. Sighing, I rejoined the call with the other 2 cars. Oliver, lead us to one of the 3 restaurants. I don't care which one. We are staying the night as well. There was a mixture of groaning and celebration. I refocused as we hit Glenwood and Oliver lead us to the diner set right in the middle of it. Really, it wasn't even a city. Not anymore. It was more of a town, and even that was being generous. We pulled into the near-empty parking lot and I got out stretching. The weight of sadness made the air thick. It felt like this is where people went to be forgotten or die. There was a cloud of depression that hung over everything. The desperation and poverty sank this whole town into its misery. The buildings were crumbling with no one around to repair it. The roads outside of the main ones turned into dirt most of the time. I wondered if there would be a conference that I would go to and this town wouldn't be here anymore. I really hate this place. Oliver crammed his hands into his jeans pocket, but I couldn't agree more. We all loaded up into the small diner, taking up 3 booths, as the waitress quickly took everyone's order. She was older, with deep and dark circles hanging under her eyes. She didn't look like she gave a single thought to what she was doing other than scribbling down our order. Do we really have to stay? Kirk asked this time. I know you want to get back to your mate, but I'm not going to last. Oliver sighed, having a sip of water. Have one of the boys drive with you. Daniel can drive. He's the best one out of the bunch. I shook my head. No. We will stay. Zale. My beta frowned at me. You doing okay? No. And I'm not changing my mind. Oliver leaned over to look at me, examining my face. When was the last time you slept? I closed my eyes, rubbing them. Guys, please. I want to get home too. I just can't do an all-nighter. Yes, Alpha. Once our food was delivered, Kirk, Oliver, and I were quiet as we listened to the boys talk. They hopped from different fights they saw at the conference to deciding whether or not that wanted to hit up the strip club. Oliver and Kirk were shaking their heads. 1, because their sons were in on the conversation, and 2, because the both of them were happily mated. That kind of place did nothing for them. Kirk and Oliver were both 36. They started under my dad to help make the transition for me a little smoother. Their mates were both in the pack when they turned 18. The both of them made it immediately and they didn't wait very long to have pups. Curtis was 17 and then Kirk had another 3 pups at home. Oliver was the one who didn't know when to quit. Jake was also 17 and the eldest of 8. I wouldn't put it past him to tell me he was expecting more in the coming months. His mate Belle was reserved and quiet, and I didn't know how she handled that many kids. I was a little jealous. There was no way I couldn't be. I wanted it. A family with a mate and kids. I didn't care how late or even if we only had 1 pup. I wanted the connection and the opportunity to love someone. Someone who the moon goddess had picked out for me. Apparently that wasn't going to be my fate. One of us is going to have to go with them, you realize that, right? Oliver pointed to Kirk. Kirk, in turn, wrinkled his nose. Rock, paper, scissor? I rolled my eyes. I will go. It's not like I sleep anyways. Plus, I'm not mated. I don't want you 2 getting sick on me if some random girl rubs up on you. A side effect of the mate bond was that even if you wanted to be sexual with someone else, it would make you sick. It would start with a headache, but it could get as bad as landing you in the hospital. Then, if you did have sex with others, you would put your mate in intense pain. The last thing I wanted was both my beta and gamma out of it because they got sick. It could stick with you, and even if they weren't interested in the women, their wolves would fight back. We had a long drive, almost 2 full days, and I needed their heads on straight since I was running on fumes. Are you sure? You need sleep, Zale? I raised an eyebrow at Kirk. Do you want to go? He wrinkled his nose. Exactly. I'll make sure they don't stay up late. I'd like to get out of here as early as possible. All right. We finished up eating and drove to the Soul Motel on the far west side of town. With all of us, we took 4 rooms and headed up to check them. The scent of old smoke seemed to be the worst of it, though. Oliver still did check every room for bedbugs and an unmentionable slew of things before clearing us to sleep in them. I'd have Jeff with me sharing the room since he was in training to be one of the head warriors. None of the kids were thinking about being on duty as they dressed up a little for the strip club. Rolling up my sleeves, I let my tattoos show as I dressed down for what I was about to walk into. I never had the unfortunate opportunity to walk into this strip club, but I could only imagine, considering what the town looked like, what the strip club was hiding. This would not be my idea of fun even on a good night. Walking down the sidewalk, the entire town was only about 5 blocks from east to west, but it did expand a little further in the other directions. I followed the boys as they laughed, pushing each other like children. I realized I absolutely looked like the parent in this scenario. It didn't help that Jeff, who was the tallest at 6'1", was still 6 inches shorter than I was. The dark circles digging under my eyes weren't helping de-age me either. We made it to the other side of town where the only sign left was XXX lit up in neon red, but the middle X was flickering. The whole building had been painted black with someone spray painting 3 X's in white over the blacked out entrance. Yeah, this was definitely not where I wanted to be. Opening up the door, I looked at every one of our boys. You are not taking anyone back. You are not going to sleep with anyone. You can drink, but I'm cutting you off at 4 drinks. We are leaving at 1. I don't care how much fun you are having, I will alpha command you. Is that understood? Yes, Dad. All of them chimed in at the same time and I was a little taken aback. They all laughed like it was the funniest thing as they walked past me into the club. Stepping in, I expected it to smell awful, but it didn't. It was dark, with a main stage and a woman spinning around the pole to music. 4 human men were sitting at the edge of the stage talking to themselves rather than watching. There were also a surprising amount of people drinking in the booths and tables scattered around the room. I followed the boys who spied the biggest booth that allowed all of us to sit comfortably. Somehow I ended up in the center, getting flanked by 3 boys on either side of me. There was something in the air though. Something that smelled off like it didn't belong. I could see a few women, scantily clad, helping serve drinks and taking orders. But nothing out of the ordinary. One of the women came over and licked her lips. Well, hello boys. We don't get many cuties like you around here. Passing through. Just for the night. Jake answered, his eyes not leaving the woman's huge breasts. She smiled and winked. Well, I can help you with the first round. Then you can decide which of the lovely ladies you would like to join you. I'll have them all come by and say hi. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at me. We do also have a couple Omegas. If you are interested, Alpha. The scent that had been throwing me off actually made me miss that she was a wolf. Rolling my shoulders, I leaned back as I tried to clear my head of the scent. I don't know why it was bothering me, but it might have been used on purpose to make everyone, human and wolf, enjoy the company no matter the race. I'll take an old-fashioned if you don't mind. She flipped her hair back. Cherry. I'll also be paying for these boys, so it will be all together. Her eyes lit up. Yes, sir. The boys ordered their drinks and sure enough, a few of the girls came over and introduced themselves. I was happy to have a drink in my hand when Michael pulled a girl into his lap. Yeah, I really didn't want to be here. This was not my idea of fun or relaxing. Suddenly, the scent wafted stronger. It smelled like a grapefruit? Something citrus, but the scent itself felt soured. Like it was past its prime. Do you mind grabbing the rest of the drinks for me, Riley? Our waitress asked the 3 working at the bar. I thought she was speaking to the bartender. But the younger boy was the one that came around. He walked over to us and my eyes widened. To say he was skinny was an understatement. There were people who liked thin, but this was going a bit far. Not to mention the corset he was wearing cinched his waist and even more. The black pants were tight and gave him more shape than I think he really had, while his hair was braided over his shoulder. He was beautiful and I could only guess he was an Omega. Anything else I can get you boys? This boy, Riley, was the source of the scent. My heart hammered and my wolf, who had stepped back the moment that we walked into this place, came forward. I could feel the table light up as I stared at this little Omega. Mate. My entire body started to shake. Riley's eyes met mine and I felt like I was drowning in them. Not in the good way. They lacked any light or spark. The only way I could describe them was soulless or lifeless. They lacked anything that could possibly be misconstrued as alive. What had this little one been through? Was there even a possibility that I could save him? Had the moon goddess really given me this little one as my mate? Riley's POV not again. I looked back behind me to see 3 assholes following me. I just got off shift at Triple, and I wanted to go to the convenience store before I went home. Sighing, I pulled my hair up into a top knot. I wasn't going to get to take a shower tonight, so I didn't want it to get dirty. Turning on my heel, I put my hands on my hips and glared at the 3 guys skulking towards me. Well, hello, Omega. I rolled my eyes. Look, guys, like you swing 2 ways. Either you're going to try to woo me with sweet words, telling me you'll take me away from here, that you'll treat me right, that I can be yours. Then you fuck me in the motel and I wake up in the morning with you gone. Or you want it dirty right now. If that's the case, there are 3 alleys between here and the convenience store. I prefer the second alley because it smells less like someone died. They even have an old desk I can rest on while you fuck me from behind. So what's it going to be? Quick and dirty? Or a night in bed? All 3 of the guys looked stunned. It didn't matter though. I was over it. They were all like this. They wanted to stalk me. They wanted me to fear them, be scared and run. They wanted the chase and then catch me to fuck me. Either in bed or somewhere out in public. The problem was that they chose the wrong Omega for that. I wouldn't run or cry. I'll walk them over to the alley, drop my pants, let it happen, and then move on with my life. It was stupid to resist. Come on, fuck this. All 3 of them turned and left. Yeah, that's what I thought. Assholes, thinking I was going to let them give chase. Whatever. Fuck them. I continued my walk to the gas station on the corner. Going in, Vince smiled at me from behind the register. Evening, Rye. I waved at him and went over to the food section. Not as much of an offering today, which was good for Vince. I grabbed one of the half-off items and a large can of the piss water they labeled as beer. Putting it on the counter, I rummaged in my pocket for the few dollars I made tonight that I got to take home. Vince rang me up and I set the money down on the counter. Once I paid, he pulled out a bag from behind the counter. These need to go in the garbage. Sadly, they expired today and I can't sell them. You mind taking them out? I nodded and took them from him, shooting him a smile. Thanks, Vince. No problem, kiddo. Stay safe. Sighing, I headed out of the gas station and walked down the sidewalk. Opening the bag, I looked at my score. Some chicken and hot dogs. It was something at least. Closing the bag, I crossed the main street and headed up the road another 2 blocks before turning into a building that was more ruins than building anymore. Pushing the main doors open, I pulled out my key and opened up the first door. It was supposed to be a mailroom or a security guard room at one point. It only had a small built-in desk under the window and then a sink, microwave, and mini fridge on the wall behind. All in one room. There was also a window facing outside that had a pull-down shade. That was it. It wasn't supposed to be an apartment. Still, it was home that I placed my food on the counter and the beer in the mini fridge that was empty. Grabbing the box of cigarettes on the counter, I headed up the 4 floors to the roof. Looking out over the town, I lit a cigarette, inhaling and exhaling into the night air. Fuck this town. Fuck it all. Fuck my life. I hated all of this. A never-ending cycle. I leaned against the edge and sighed. It didn't change. I'd been in this shithole for 3 years. Not a single thing had changed. I shook my head. Why was I even still here? Why was I still alive? Snorting, I flicked the end of my cigarette and took another drag. I knew why. 'Cause I was a little chicken shit. Not to mention this wasn't even the worst I'd been through as an Omega Wolf. And as a slave, I'd been sold over and over, getting the worst done to me. Seeing just how long I could survive, or trying to get me to have their heirs, or simply use me up and then sell me when I wasn't of use. Over and over until my contract landed in the hands of Evan, the owner of Triple. He'd been the most hands-off master that I had. Mostly because he purchased me as a business transaction and not for personal use. Omegas were beautiful to look at, and while I was the only male Omega at Triple, I helped fill a gap. After 2 years, he'd let me buy myself out of the contract. Though he said that he overpaid and that I still owed him for the difference, but technically I was free. Freedom never smelled so stale. Looked so unappetizing. and felt worse than some of my previous situations. Chuckling, I pulled up another cigarette and lit it just before the door to the roof crashed against the metal side of the air conditioning unit. "Riley, there you are." I rolled my eyes and didn't even bother to look. The fat lard that was Paul, my landlord, slammed the roof door shut behind him. "What did I say about smoking up here? It's either here or my room. Your choice," he growled. "You brat. Don't you fucking give me lip. Not after all I've done for you." It wasn't even worth rolling my eyes. This is how it was. I knew what was coming next. Putting the cigarette to my lips, I leaned over the brick more. 1 month? You little shit. Sure enough though, he strode forward and grabbed my jeans. Pulling them down, they just fell. I didn't have money to buy new ones and I'd gotten too thin for them to fit anymore. His belt unbuckled and I wondered how the thing held back the massive rolls that fell out. All I could think was that, at least this way I didn't need to look at him, there was no easing in. No. He just rammed himself into me. His fat fingers grabbed my bony hips as he slammed the tiny thing he tried to call a dick into my asshole. I didn't take my eyes off the lights of the town that I missed winter. In the snow, it almost covered the darkness this town carried. Taking another drag, I let it out slowly. Everyone here was stuck for some reason or another, and not always money. Like me, it could be a combination of stupid issues. Behind me, Paul grunted a few times before he struggled to keep hitting me at full power and I felt his cum drip down my leg. Slapping my ass with his hand, I rolled my eyes. Did he think that somehow gave him power over me? Like he could just slap my ass like he owned it? 1 week. He turned and I refused to look back as he slammed the door shut behind him. The air was still brisk, but it would turn hot and sticky as soon as we headed into summer. For now, the breeze was cool against my ass and I didn't even bother to pull my pants up that I hated this. I hated this so much. Putting out my cigarette, I leaned down and pulled up my pants. Turning, I headed down the stairs to my room. Heating up the food in the microwave, I ate, not really tasting the food. It was somehow soggy and dry at the same time. At least it was food, and since it was the first I was eating today, I inhaled all of it. Sitting on the floor against the wall, I pulled out my book that was falling apart. This was my way of escaping. The only way I could pull myself out. They didn't sell anything other than magazines here, which was a shame. Sighing, I let myself sink into the story for the 1,000th time. After a couple hours of getting lost in the story, I crawled into the blankets that I made a nest in. After the 5th time of having glass broken and falling all over me, I decided the best place to sleep was under the built-in desk that was under the window. It meant that I wouldn't have glass raining down on top of me every time someone thought that there was something valuable in this office. Curling up, I closed my eyes and fell into a restless sleep. My shift at the motel started at 5 in the morning. Dolores paid me a measly amount to completely clean every room in the motel, but it was something. More than I took home from the strip club most nights after Evan's purchase tax. That it wasn't my fault he bought me for a ridiculous price. He got scammed. That's on him. I felt no need to pay him back for that, but Evan did. Sometimes I'd get a couple of 20s from the people passing through, but that was few and far between. During the Alpha conference, traffic was better and Alphas enjoyed an Omega hole, not really giving a preference to the gender of it. It was then that I could make a couple hundred in a night. Everyone who lived in L-Town though hated male Omegas as a sexual preference. I'd never make any money from them. Only the few passerbys who chanced coming into Triple. Deciding to shift before I tried to sneak into the building's communal showers. I hoped I could get some time alone. I didn't run too far, because I didn't want to be too tired for my night shift. Still, it felt good to stretch my paws and run. It wasn't as cold as running through the snow, but it was still cool enough to feel nice. Once I finished my short run, I slipped into the building and checked the showers. It was perfect. No one was around right now. I did a quick wash and rinse, happy to feel clean without getting bothered. Walking over to Triple, I headed in the back and smiled at the girls. A few hugged me, and I set down my bag in the corner. I had a locked drawer as my storage where I kept my makeup, and a few other things. One thing I couldn't trust these girls with was my makeup. They were vultures, even if it was old and mostly used. "Riley, I need you to work a double." Rolling my eyes, I shook my head. "I can't. I've got a shift tomorrow at the motel. I'll talk to Dolores. She'll let you off. I need you more. You need to handle the bar. There is a meeting in the morning." He didn't even wait, slamming the door behind him. Evan was one of the OG townsfolk, his family going back 4 generations. I'm sure his father, one of the 4 rancher families in the area, loved that he was managing triple instead of going into the family business. Being half werewolf, he was strong but didn't actually have a wolf. He preferred to cater to werewolves, even though the town was mostly humans. Which is why he purchased me in the first place. Goddess, I hated the morning meetings. A bunch of shady fucking alphas showing up in the middle of nowhere talking about offing people. Tomorrow, the alphas would be driving back to their packs after the conference, and it was my time to get some savings built up. At least you can make some extra money. Ginny elbowed me and smiled. Hell, maybe one will take you away from here. Yeah, I don't want any of those fuckers. I'll take their money, but I don't feel like being a sex slave again. Not anytime soon. Heather slapped my ass. Don't complain. You sexy little Omega. Someone will pick you up. 3 years, Heather. No one wants some washed up old Omega. Ginny snorted, swiping her eyeliner on. Old, he says. As he looks 16. I'm 25. Bullshit. Heather threw her hair over her shoulder. I'll never believe it. Shrugging, I started to change and moved over to have Ginny lace me into the corset vest I wore. Pulling up my sequin pants. I started to pull up my hair, but decided to just do a loose braid over my right shoulder. God, if I looked half as cute as you. Heather squished my cheeks together. Where are you posted tonight? I don't know. Evan didn't say. Speak of the devil, and he will show back up. All right. Heather on pole. Ginny, Jasmine, Lucy, and Cherry, I want you serving. Me. I crossed my arms over my chest. Bar and back up to the girls. Of course. I'd be called when a group didn't have any interest in the girls, or if there was an alpha in the group. Until then, I was set aside because who likes a male Omega? No one. At least not in this town. I really needed to leave. Go to a bigger city. I'd have better luck there. Make more money. Maybe even find myself an okay alpha. I didn't need a good one. I'd settle for one who left me alone until he wanted a hole to fuck. I'd take that over being chained to the bed any day. Get out there. Relieve the afternoon girls. We all grumbled our versions of yes, and I snuck behind the bar. Ferris and Cedric were busy making drinks. I slipped in, starting in on the dishes that were piling up. More and more people were coming in, and I helped where I was needed. It was around 10 in the evening when a huge group came in. They sat down in Cherry's section, much to her delight. The moment they stepped in, something felt off. Like my warning bells were going off on these guys, but not in a bad way. I was picking up lavender, a strong scent of lavender, and I knew none of the girls wore lavender perfume. So either I was having a stroke, or one of these guys was the source of the scent. It was hard to not close my eyes and drown in it. Lavender was such a calming scent. Cherry was smiling, turning up the charm before she came over with their drink order. I helped the guys mix the drinks since there were so many of them. Ginny's table also had ordered another round and Cedric was handling those. The middle one, the older one, he's an alpha. If you want to shoot your shot. Cherry winked at me as she took 2 of the drinks. Do you mind grabbing the rest of the drinks for me, right? I came around the counter and grabbed the extra drinks with her, helping her deliver them. The scent of lavender was overwhelming the closer I got. Shoving it down, I smirked and tried to slip into my flirty persona. Moving the drinks to the correct people, I nodded to them. Anything else I can get you boys? My eyes lifted to the alpha in the center, and his eyes were shining. My heart picked up. Fuck. He realized it too. I frowned and looked behind me. So far, Evan and Douglas, our bouncer, hadn't noticed. Sir, rein your wolf in or you're going to get kicked out. He blinked for a moment before I saw his eyes finally turn back to normal. The kids around him seemed surprised at the slip as well. That meant this was exactly what I was afraid of. This wasn't a new cologne. This was a mate scent. His wolf had recognized me as his mate. Frowning, I stepped back. I apologize. It won't happen again. Goddess, his voice was like velvet. Fuck me. Literally. I wondered if he would be okay with just taking me out back and giving me a good pounding before leaving. Motioning to Xena, she came over and smiled. She'd been late and not placed on the floor yet. However, I knew wolves liked their partners strong and Xena was built for a human. Two of the kids were drooling as she walked over. I think these boys need some company, Xena. I have a feeling you're right up their alley. She kissed my cheek and climbed into the lap of the two on the left. Thank you, sweets. The alpha was eyeing me like I was going to evaporate if he blinked. Honestly, I might. I knew better. He'd promise me the world and then leave in the morning without me. They were all the same. They saw my brand or realized just how used I was, and they would hightail it out, leaving me behind with a mess to clean up. I doubted this asshole was any different. If you need anything else, just ask Cherry or the bar. Winking at them, I walked back over the bar and slipped between Cedric and Ferris. Amidst their drinking making, the two of them were glancing at me. You okay, Rye? I nodded, not saying anything. Bullshit. You'd normally be all over the alpha over there. Or the guys in the far corner. They've been throwing around cash at the girls, but they have been eyeing you the whole time. Cedric leaned in. Did they say something? Do we need to kick them out? No. My lips pursed. I think I need a smoke. I slipped away after emptying out the sink of the dishes. Heading out back, I grabbed the box off the electrical box with the lighter and pushed open the door. Lighting a cigarette, I leaned against the building and smoked. It was cool, but my skin was already covered in goosebumps. A jacket covered my front and I looked up to see Douglas smoking his own pack. You looking for a fuck, big boy? He chuckled. Not from you, little one. Shrugging, I took another drag. Your loss. I'm willing. We both knew I was joking. Douglas had a crush on Heather, but she would never give Douglas a glance. He was an OG townsfolk just like Evan. Heather wanted to get out of this shithole like most of us, so it was never going to work between them. Douglas also didn't flaunt that he was rich, neither did he want to leave. His family owned a huge ranch south of here that he worked at during the day. At night he made extra money here. I think he did it more to watch out for the girls than the actual money though. What are you doing out here? You don't normally need to step out this early. I bit my lip. That alpha in there is my mate. Douglas coughed and looked at me wide-eyed. Your mate? You kidding? Why the hell aren't you climbing him like a damn tree and getting the fuck out of here? Laughing, I shook my head. I know alphas, Douglas. I know these assholes. They will try to offer you the world. Then they leave you cold and alone in bed the next day. Promises broken. Heartbroken. If you still have one. I chuckled. I sure don't. I'm too fucked up. Riley, that's not true. Snorting, I raised my eyebrow at him. I got another week on my rent where I sleep on the floor by letting the landlord fuck me in the ass. I've got nothing to offer anyone other than my asshole, and that's already been used by more than the entire popular in this town. Douglas was frowning as I knocked the ash onto the floor. Kiddo, you're too hard on yourself. You've done what you have had to in order to survive. That's not. Dropping the cigarette on the ground, I ground my shoes on it. Dougie, darling, I don't want to survive. I want to die. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm just too weak to off myself. Before he could say anything else, I opened up the door and let it shut behind me. Setting the box of cigarettes back, I headed back behind the bar. Ferris took his break and I jumped into making drinks. I could feel the alpha stare on me, and the scent was more pungent before. Still, I continued to ignore it. The entire time I worked, I didn't look up and ignored them completely. Eventually, the whole group all got up and left. Looking at the time, it was a few minutes past 1 in the morning. It seemed a bit early, but they may have been coming from the conference. Cherry came over, slipping a note to me. This is yours, courtesy of the alpha. The rest of us got a huge fucking bonus and tip. Taking it, I burst out laughing. He'd left his number saying, call me when you get off, we need to speak. Joke's on him, I didn't have a phone. Cell phone or otherwise. I could barely afford food and I wasn't going to waste money on a phone. Whatever. He'd be gone in the morning and I wouldn't need to deal with him. Shoving it in my back pocket, the only pocket in these pants, I continued the night like usual. Dash Riley. I hummed, looking up from the glasses I was drying. It had to 4 in the morning. Evan was rubbing his eyebrows. He really shouldn't. They were already getting thin as it was. Nearly as bad as the top of his head. Get out of here. My eyebrow rose. I thought I was in for a double shift? Yeah, well. Douglas said no. Told me I needed to let you go. Sighing, I shook my head. Fine. I'm not going to go into Dolores though. She'd have me start in an hour. Heading into the back dressing area, I pulled off my uniform and threw on an oversized t-shirt that had more holes in it than a Swiss cheese and some old jeans. Walking out the back, I was glad not to be harassed this early in the morning. Stepping into the apartment building, there were the early risers taking a shower and mulling about between their apartments and the stairs. I threw my bag into my place and headed up the stairs to the roof. I needed another smoke. The entire damn night I was smelling lavender and I had such a headache now I wanted to hammer a nail in my head. Leaning against the brick, I took in a few deep breaths to clear my lungs and my head. I was exhausted in a completely different way from normal. It was like my soul was hurting and tired. Riley. My brow furrowed and I turned to see the fat lard himself storm over to me. Where the fuck have you been? Working. Where else would I be? He grabbed me by the back of neck and slammed my chest onto the bricks that made up the railing around the roof. I hadn't even gotten out my cigarette to smoke yet. My pants fell and I winced as he forced himself on me. Looking out over the town, I wondered if that alpha was staying at the motel, or if he and the kids had moved on already. It took a shorter amount of time for Paul to finish, and when he did, he grabbed my hair. Pulling me back, I didn't even wince. Come back on time. You are mine to use, brat, unless you want to get kicked out. I have work. Evan asked me to work a double. I tried to look back at him. You gonna add on another week? Paul laughed, but it wasn't funny. No, he threw me against the edge of the brick, walking away and slamming the door behind him. Absolute fucking asshole. His wife probably threw him out for something. I pulled up my pants and grabbed the cigarette. Lighting it, I continued to stare out at the view. This sucked. He got a free fuck. If he did it again, I might have to bite his balls off. When I finished my cigarette, I lit another one and felt a little emboldened. Looking down over the brick, I scrunched my nose. Getting up onto the ledge, I felt the breeze of the morning against my skin. Would 4 stories do it? Or would being a wolf make me survive the fall? I continued to smoke, the holes in my shoes picking up wind as they barely hung off the edge of the building. Riley. I didn't need to turn. I'd smelled the fucking lavender. His voice like the damn velvet rubbing over my skin. There was an edge in his voice this time though. Cackling, I shook my head. Don't worry. If I had the balls to throw myself off this damn building, I'd done it years ago. Sitting down on the edge, I let my feet dangle off. You shouldn't be up here though. If Paul catches you, you'd have to stand there, smell his stench, and watch his fucking spit fly everywhere as he yelled at you. The alpha stepped closer, tentatively, until he was right next to me. He leaned forward, his arms leaning against the wall I was sitting on. You didn't call. I shrugged. I don't own a phone. Plus, I just got off. Got kicked off my double shift. Probably because of you. He sighed, sounding ridiculously tired. My curiosity was piqued and I looked at him. Tired didn't really seem the word to cover it. Even exhausted seemed like too little for what he was feeling. His eyes roamed over the view. From up here, it doesn't seem too bad. Snorting, I nodded. You would think. But the only thing good about this town is the road leading out of it. Come with me. I rolled my eyes. I've had that before. Come meet me at the edge of the city. Stay here till I come back. Wait up for me. I'll be right back. Don't worry, I'll get you out. Shaking my head, I moved on to a third cigarette. I don't believe in that shit anymore. It's all a bunch of lies. Bullshit that they think will help me spread my legs for them. Joke's on them, they just need to pay me. Help buy me a meal. I'll let them fuck me behind the diner. The alpha next to me growled. You shouldn't talk like that. Or what, alpha? You gonna spank me? Please. I'm not a child. Zale. I cocked my head to the side. What? My name is Zale.